All right, ladies and gentlemen, today is Friday, January the 15th, and we are going to do lesson 5 today. Make sure you have your tools out. We're going to learn today about the opposite of a number's opposite. You remember maybe 2 weeks ago, we played Simon Says?
Yeah.
And remember how I tricked you?
No. You didn't trick us.
Never have. Okay, Simon Says stand up. Sit down. Oh. Simon Says sit down. Simon Says stand up. Simon Says don't stand up. Simon Says don't not stand up. I did trick some of you. Riley, Henry, Madison, you guys are right. Angel, and you. All right, have a seat. That's what we're going to talk about today, when we have two opposites together.
You didn't say Simon Says.
Oh, that's right. All right, this first page right here is just a review of the first 4 lessons that we did. So it's going to be really quick and simple. Use your highlighter because we want to make sure you're following the right directions. In the directions, it says, locate number 2, bless you, and its opposite on the number line. So we're going to locate -2. And its opposite, which would be what, Cooper? Yes, +2. Simple, right?
Yeah.
Part B, write an integer. And we're still having problems with this direction, guys. We're still having people forgetting. When it says to write an integer, you have to say positive or negative and the number. Maya, and the number. So don't just write positive negatives. You have to include the number too. What is 50 feet below sea level? What integer? Excuse me. I'm sorry, 90. I can't read right now. What's 90 feet below sea level, Madison? Exactly right. $100 in debt. Alexis, positive or negative? You're in debt. You owe people money. -100. And what about 2 degrees Celsius above 0, Olivia? +2. Exactly right. And here's the last review question. We did one of these last week when we talked about going down Central Avenue and stopping at the bookstore and then going to the pet shops. Remember that? This is kind of similar, but there's a little bit of a twist to this one. So now we're going to start at an ice cream shop. Joe's at an ice cream shop, and his house is 10 blocks north of the shop. So the house is 10 blocks north of the ice cream shop. The park is 10 blocks south of the ice cream shop. So which of those places is in the middle? The house, the park, or the ice cream shop? Which is in the middle, Maya? The house is north, and the park is south. Riley? The ice cream shop is in the middle. Now, if I say north and south, am I going to use a horizontal number line or a vertical number line? Vertical number line. So that's the difference with this one. And we said that the ice cream shop is in the middle. And so the middle number, what number belongs there? Tatum. 0. And then it says his house is 10 blocks north. And the park is 10 blocks south. So that's all just, reviewing what we've talked about before. When you're done with that, you can turn to the next page. At the top of page 2 is the new part of this lesson, where we start talking about the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of the opposite. Oh, it's going to be so easy by the time we're done. You're going to be it's just unbelievable. Here we go. Here's the question we're going to solve. What is the opposite of 8? And how can we show this on a number line. So that's what we're going to solve. First question. What number is 8 units to the right of 0? Oh, there's my number line. I don't have 0. So what do we have to do first? Set up our number line. How do I find the center of the number line, Henry? Well, let's try that. I counted them all. There are 17 altogether. But I have to subtract 1 because I need to use one of those tick marks for 0, don't I?
Yeah.
I have 16 left. So what goes on each side? Angel? 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. And then I always count the other side to make sure I didn't get it wrong. Because I should have 8 left over here too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's where my 0 belongs. Now we can say, what number is 8 units to the right of 0? So if I go to the right, 8 units, I end up way down here. What number is that? Isaiah. Positive 8. Goes in the space, goes there. Now, how would we find the opposite of that? Remember, opposites are same distance away from 0 on the opposite side, right? So where is that one going to be, Olivia? -8 on the end, exactly right. Do I have to number everything in between? You don't really have to. If you know there's 8 tick marks and you have to mark 8, you can just go to the end. All right, the opposite of 8 then is -8. Okay, that's the easy part. Here comes the trick. Use the same process to locate the opposite of -8. So what's the opposite of -8? Positive 8. It's going to be in just a minute. You ready? So I'm gonna highlight this sentence right here, and you guys have to make sure, because that's what I'm going to talk about next, and I'm going to show you while I read it. If I start at 8 and I do the opposite of 8, where do I end up? Right where I started from, right? Does it work if I start over here? Let's check. What's the opposite of that? The opposite of the opposite. I end up right where I started, right? I end up at the original place where I was. The opposite of a number is the original number. So wherever you started, you're going to end in the same place. Okay, down here, we're going to have to switch this up a little bit. We're going to start in this column. We're not going to do this one. Write the following numbers in there. So this is my original number. And this is going to be the opposite. And this is going to be the opposite of the opposite. So what's the opposite of -14, Kylie? And what's the opposite of 14? I end up right where I started. See that? Okay, 400. Izzy, what's the opposite of 400? And what's the opposite of -400? End up right back where you started. Angel, the opposite of -88 and the opposite of 88 and 12. Cooper and so what they want you to know is that if you have two opposites, they cancel each other out and you're right at the same number you started at. So here's the way I want to show you. This is how you write it when you do algebra. And everything we're doing in this module is getting you ready for module 4, which is algebra. So I want to show you how to write it. The opposite of -10. So the opposite of the opposite of negative 10 as an equation. An equation means it has to have an equal sign. So now let's look at this. Every two negative signs are going to cancel each other out, right? So this and this are going to cancel each other out. And what number do I have left? Negative 10. So in general, for any number, no matter what it is, the opposite of a number is always the original number. Now let me show you what it's going to look like when you get to algebra. And, oh, this is going to be cool. You can take this home and show your parents tonight and blow their mind. You ready? Write this. The opposite of 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 negative 2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So watch this. Did you write that down?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Miles' face. He's pretending to take a nap with his eyes open. Every two negative signs cancel out. So watch. These two cancel out. And these two cancel out. And these two cancel out. And what's my answer? 2. Now, you can take that home and just like write out this really long thing and say to your mom, so what's the answer? And see if they know. Especially your grandma. She would be like, what? She would? Nice. Okay, open your composition books. A little short note today. It's not much. That's it right there. Go ahead and get that copy down as soon as you're done. Close your composition books. That way I know you're ready to go on. Guys, you got 2 minutes. Start writing. When you're finished, close your composition books. That way I'll know when we're ready to go on. We are all the way up to the problem set already. We are. That's basically the whole lesson. Every two negatives cancel out.
Yay.
Yep.
What if your mom is like really smart and good at math?
She might not know. You might be able to trick
My mom
her.
doesn't even have vision, so I have to help her.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. If you need to finish your notes, you can borrow my book in just a second. Let's go to the problem set. Let me talk you through this. First of all, bam. Put your name at the top of this paper. Yeah, please don't rip your pages in half and stuff. Okay, so on the problem set, we're going to do some together and some you're going to do on your own. So let's start up here. It says read each description carefully and write an equation that represents the description. We're going to do A and B together so you can see what it looks like. The opposite of negative 7 looks like this. The opposite of negative 7 equals, because remember, equations have equal signs, equals what, Izzy?
7.
Yep. That's your first one. Here's number 2. The opposite of 25. So here we go. The opposite of 25 equals what? 25. Excellent. You're going to do C and D by yourself. So circle those two. And we're going to talk about problem number 2 together. We're going to change Jose. We're going to cross out Jose and write Mr. Church. Mr. Church drew this graph. Wonder if it's even right. Okay, let's see. He graphed the opposite of 3 on the number line, but first he graphed point P 3 units to the right of 0. So I have 0. I'm going to go 3 units to the right and label it what, Miles? Okay. Then he graphed the opposite of P and 3 units to the left, and he labeled that K. Make sense so far? Then he graphed the opposite of K and labeled it Q. So what's the opposite of K going to be? It's going to be over here, right? And we're going to label that Q. All right, we're going to skip part A because the diagram is correct. Write the relationship between these 2 points. So if I look at P and K, what's the relationship between those 2 places? They are what? Okay, but that's not a relationship. Riley? They are. And what word do we use for those? What have we been talking about today? Opposites. Opposites of each other, right? So on this line, that's why I want to do this one together. Okay, what about K and Q? What about these 2 points? They are what? Cooper? They are opposites. And then last but not least, what about P and Q? They are the same. That's amazing. Good job, guys. All right, we're going to scoot down here to the end. You did. He did that correctly.
Good job.
We just had to check. All right, part 3 and 4, we're going to do the first one together, and you're going to do the rest by yourself. So it says, read each description and write the integer that represents, watch this, the opposite of the opposite. So it's going to get kind of confusing. We're going to write this. We're going to write for part A, the opposite of the opposite. And what integer would this be? A temperature rise of 15 degrees. What integer? Positive 15 equals, what's the opposite of 15 going to be? 15, because those are going to cancel out, right? Let's do one more. The opposite of a gain of 55 yards. What number do I write? Positive 55. And if those 2 cancel out, my answer is? Okay, so you guys are going to do C and D by yourself. Then we're going down here. Write the integer that represents the statement. Then locate and label the points on the number line below. Let's do the first one together. What's the opposite of a gain of 6? Lily, what's the opposite of a gain of 6? Negative 6. Let's do one more. What's the opposite of a deposit of $10? What's the opposite of deposit? Isaiah? When you take money out of the bank, withdraw. So the opposite of a deposit would be a negative. You're going to answer the rest of these, and then you're going to put all of those points, all 5 of them, on this number line. And remember, you have to decide where does 0 belong and what scale should I count by. Because I can already tell you there's not going to be enough tick marks on each side to get to 10. All right? There's 17 tick marks. It's going to be 8 on each side, so you can't count by ones. All right, go. This is due before class is over. Go ahead and finish that up. And if you're doing this from home, please turn in your answers in Kami.